Hello there, good evening, and welcome to Beer Blather 198, highly exaggerated rumors. This is Solvantes Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, here with my friend there from California, Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers. And we're here to tell you today what we are fucking fed up with some idiocies. At least I am. We'll find out if Thomas is too. Before I say anything further, we are doing this live on our channel in Odyssey. The link is in every other channel so that you can come here. And I would strongly recommend that you come in and get your account in Odyssey because, hey, we don't know how long we're going to be able to do this in Twitter or YouTube. So if you are there, by all means have your alternative account with us, because one of these days we're going to disappear from there. I feel it in my bones. It started. Now, those of you who want to support us and keep us rolling, you have several ways of doing this. You can come to Odyssey and either click on the $sign and make a contribution on the chat so that it appears like a super chat in YouTube, or click on support and you can make a donation directly to the channel without being seen, or you can go to quadverum.com/support us and make a donation there. We use those to keep our social Quadverum running and this channel at the same time. Now, and of course, YouTube in about a half an hour or so, when we decide to start with the Adult Swim, we're going to have to get out of there. So if you want to see the whole channel, click on the link in the description below the video. And if you don't, well, have a good night. As you can see, Thomas, I am back in Florida in my golden cage on the sea, except I haven't been able to see much of anything because it's been blowing like hell. I arrived with a shaking car and I thought there was a problem, with the car. And when I parked, the car continued to shake. It was the freaking wind. It's like a hurricane out there. There were at least 60 to 80 mile an hour bursts around this building. And, that's borderline hurricane strength. And it's been nasty and rainy and foggy and crappy. I wonder why the hell they call this the Sunshine State. They ought to be sued for lying in their advertising. But that's not.
Don't people go to Florida during the wintertime to escape the bad weather?
Yes, they do, and all the Quebecois and all that have begun to arrive here, which already makes me pine for the north. Surprise! You get to stay indoor, except you have no heater here, and you left your sweaters in Ottawa. So, come on. Come over here. Enjoy the storm and be miserable. Anyway. Just to make matters better, I got a love note from Twitter today. Like how should I say this? An insinuating lovegram. Is it this? Yes, it is. Okay. The lovegram, I'll tell you what I answered later, is hi. C'est moi. Your post was deleted by our not deleted, I'm sorry. Your post was detected by our systems and has had its visibility limited for violating the X rules. Specifically, we have determined your post violated our rules against hateful conduct. You may not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. There is, of course, a caveat. You can show people butt fucking in the Senate. As a result, your tweet may stay on the platform, but we have limited its reach. You can learn more about your tweet's visibility, why your tweet visibility is limited, on our help center, which of course doesn't say anything, except what I just read you. If you think we made a mistake, you can appeal the violation by going to your tweet and selecting Learn More. The tweet, by the way, this awful thing that is, what is it that they said? Hateful conduct? Is somebody tells me, good friend in Twitter, he's been a nice follower. We've had conversations every now and then. And he told me that people should show solidarity with Israel. And I answered, I have been wearing a yarmulke and will continue to do so until the Gaza war ends. We should all do it and see if these asshats will harass us en masse. They are coming for the Jews? Ich bin Eid. Fuck 'em.
Yeah, what happened is their algorithm saw the word Yid, and the algorithm doesn't speak Yiddish. Ich bin Yid is Yiddish for I'm Jewish, and
yes,
so that's that.
Talk about ignorance, right?
Well, I mean, we could go all the way into why artificial intelligence poses no threat to human intelligence. It can't create anything. It's only as smart as the people who make it. And Twitter can't understand. They don't tell it, it can't read the context. The Twitter algorithm cannot context.
But it gets worse, my friend.
Right.
Because as I was writing this, I appealed.
Right.
What I wrote was anti-Semitism much, Mr. Musk? I believe you are not one, but sure as day you have a few here. Now it turns out that Je suis Charlie is okay, but Ich bin Yid isn't.
Yeah, because it doesn't speak Yiddish.
Defiant? Absolutely. Hateful? Most assuredly not. This does not promote violence against, threaten, or harass other people in any guise. Let me reaffirm that if any person or entity comes for the Jews, I am one. Apparently, now ex-Twitter does too.
Right, but you're arguing with a machine.
No, well, this is a message to people. The thing is that when I appealed, it said that the support team would review the context and decide whether they made a mistake or not, whether the algorithm, as you say, picked the wrong word. In less than 4 minutes,
right,
less than 4 minutes, I get an email. Thank you for your patience. We have reviewed your appeal request regarding the following tweet. Our support team has determined that a violation did take place, specifically around violating rules against hateful conduct. Now, they are telling me, and it's a lie, that a support team reviewed it. Bullshit. It was again the machine and again the same mistake.
No, they don't review it. There's no human being reviewing anything.
Bingo. They give you to understand that there is, though.
No. Look, this is why I don't comment on Twitter. It's if I were on Twitter, they would close my account within about a week. So,
yeah, well, I may last 6 weeks longer than you.
Well, just don't comment. Don't comment. you're dealing with. I mean, this is a storm that we're riding out a storm, and we're seeing the end of it because. I mean, all right. Let's explain what we're going to talk about tonight. We've said the name of this beard blather is rumors greatly exaggerated, and that's a paraphrase of a Mark Twain quote, where he said the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated, and people have written off Ukraine, the Israeli effort to destroy Hamas, and Donald Trump. And those are great Twain-like exaggerations, because nothing could be further than from the truth than to write off those three subjects. And the reason that I am now posting the link to this talk on my Twitter channel is because, you know, it gets more views, but I have no interest in going back into what I used to spend so much time on up until 2018, because, okay, you're not going to change minds, and you're not, these are very shameless people. They're robots. There's a term called NPC, a non-programmable character, that's seen in video games. That's the person who's just walking around in the background. And I've got better things to do. So
yep. I may have to follow your advice on this.
Yeah, because you're going to get suspended. There's no doubt about it. And there, between now and the election, we're going to see the crazy ramped up like you wouldn't believe. The pro-Palestinians, as they call themselves, but who are actually pro-Hamas.
They're actually anti-Jew. They don't give a shit who is on their side, as long as they're against the Jews.
They're boycotting Jerry Seinfeld, or not boycotting him. They're protesting Jerry Seinfeld's appearance somewhere because he wrote on one of his social media accounts that he supports Israel, and they are proudly referring to themselves as the new BLM. And it's like, okay, I mean, as I said to you, I'm not Jewish, so it may sound bad to Jewish people when I say let them do this, because in the long run, I mean, this is a disaster. This is a disaster for Democrats, because these are their folks, and a hell of a lot of Jewish American Democrats have had their eyes opened. They were thinking, now finally we'll get support. No, you're never going to get support. Jew hatred is a mental, it's a brain rot. It can't be cured. They're never going to support you under any reason. That's why they're fighting the Israelis every step of the way. They didn't behead babies. Okay, well, maybe they beheaded babies, but they certainly didn't sexually assault any women. Okay, but sure, maybe they sexually assaulted women, but they didn't sexually assault them and then kill them, or they didn't sexually assault them to death. So there's no point at which the world is going to go, you know what, you guys are right. It's never going to happen, ever, ever, ever. At least that's my opinion.
No, it is. I found one thing. Well, no, I can show it to you now. I'm gonna leave this one for later, because I have to show you a video, and if I show you a video, then YouTube doesn't like it, even though it is squarely within the fair use. So screw that. I'll show it to you later when YouTube is out of the picture.
No, well, just before you go into that, YouTube just completely got rid of one of the more pro-Ukraine channels for reporting facts.
Yes.
The channel has been, it wasn't warned, it wasn't given a community strike, it was just deleted. And they told the owner, who's he's a Czech, he's got a Slavic accent, I believe. And they told him that he was uh, 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 he was posing as someone he wasn't, or something like that. It was like, what? And then they also, when he said, what are you talking about? Give me an example. Then they changed it to spreading misinformation. So it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, that was my discussion with them.
Yeah. So, YouTube has the official, the double plus good narrative that you're supposed to stick to regardless. And, if you go against it, they get rid of you. That's all there is to it. So anyway, I interrupted you, so go ahead.
Obviously, the same thing is in Twitter. I mean, if you want to harass the parents of the Sandy Hook children who died at the hands of that lunatic, it's okay. It's free speech, man. But if you want to, like expose that or talk about Israel, no, that's a no, baby.
Alex Jones was found liable not because of free speech issues, but because he was defaming people for years.
Yes,
it went on for years. They
willfully and maliciously.
Of course. So it's one of the worst things that somebody can do. One of the most dishonest things that somebody can do is reductionism, where you reduce very complex issues, or at least issues that you strip everything of its context, and you say Alex Jones was not allowed to engage in free speech. He had to pay $1 million for engaging in free speech. That's not the case. He paid $1 billion. He was fined $1 billion, or whatever the term is, the legal term for the penalty. He was penalized for $1 billion because he was defaming people. He was slandering people. He was torturing them. All of that is you are able to take somebody to court for defaming you. Johnny Depp did it to Amber Heard, and he was successful.
Yep. And Amber Heard didn't have to pay money because, free speech. She had to pay money because Johnny Depp was right.
Yeah, she defamed him, or she libeled him. Defaming is speech, and libel is writing, or is it the other way around?
Oh, don't ask me. I'm not Ron Coleman.
Right. So he took her to court over an article she'd written.
Yes.
And it was proven in court that she lied. And Alex Jones, I mean, he basically got what he was looking for. And he declared bankruptcy. He's going to be fine. He's never going to have to.
You know that the judge hauled his ass to court recently to remind him that bankruptcy does not discharge the judgment. And he's still liable, and whatever money he makes has to go to the parents of the victims of Sandy Hook, which I think is poetic justice.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I also think that he's got LLCs after LLCs. He's hiding behind a net of companies like a drug dealer, and it's going to be very difficult to get a dime out of him.
Well,
but can you imagine if your 6-year-old was destroyed by bullets fired by a madman, and as you are mourning your child, you have this asshole constantly carping that you're lying, that you didn't have a child, that nobody died at Sandy Hook?
Well, I mean, Americans always do this. The Boston Marathon, they always call it a government black ops. The Boston Marathon, Those are all
Jesus.
crisis actors. They took an amputee from the Iraq War, and they grafted fake bones sticking out of his legs when this guy was being wheeled in a wheelchair with his lower leg bones totally exposed. And oh, those are fake. It's all fake. And nobody ever provides evidence for their claims. They show a fourth generation video, and they say, see, look, the aircraft disappeared before it flew into the North Tower or whatever. And this is like a piece of shit video. When you see the original generation video, it doesn't show any such thing.
Not at all. And I remember that they did the same shit with the Pentagon. There was no plane, sir. There is no plane. Of course, the plane fucking vaporized when it hit that wall. But I remember a tape I saw from a camera on the parking lot that clearly shows the plane hitting that wall and then a ginormous ball of fire. And I doubt there was very much left of anything in there.
Well, there's photos out there that show wreckage. Just, I mean, parts colored, painted in the livery of the airline.
Yeah.
So, or Building 7. We heard the owner say, pull it, and that means demolish it. No, it doesn't. It's never been used in the history of the world to say, knock the building down or whatever. It's and Building 7, there was a fire going on there for hours. That thing, any office building, everything in the building is combustible. All the chairs, all the carpets, all the desks, everything. And again, it didn't melt the steel that supported the floors. It softened them enough that they collapsed. And I've seen at least 2 different experiments where they took an identical weight-bearing beam of steel and they laid it across a pit, and they poured gas fuel into the pit, and they lit the gas fuel, and after 45 minutes or so, the beam started collapsing under its own weight. So, none of this is a secret, but Alex Jones discovered that making his accusations against the Sandy Hook parents, that was the most lucrative thing he'd ever done in his entire career. So, of course, he was going to keep on doing it.
And he did for years.
Yeah. So,
but can you imagine the suffering of those families?
No, I can't. I mean, I honestly can't, because, I mean, I don't watch. I mean, I watch tons of movies on Netflix and Prime and all the other subscription channels. I never watch movies about children being killed. Never. Back when I was on Twitter, all the Jew-hating weirdos, the Irishmen and the Canadians and Australians and very few Americans, they all collected photos of horribly mutilated corpses of children from various Middle Eastern wars. And they would spam me with these. And I'd always ask, what kind of person collects these photos? Because you obviously have a folder of them. And I would ask them, are you like masturbating as you look at those photos? I mean, what are you doing?
No, they probably are. And when they're not looking at the photos, they do that too.
Well, the funniest thing about all this, okay, I guess, we'll start talking about Israel. This is the last time Israel is ever going to have to do this. I heard Netanyahu speak, I think it was today, and he reiterated Gaza will be demilitarized. We're not going to turn it over to the Palestinian Authority. We're not going to turn it over to anybody. We're going to be providing security for Gaza, and basically we're going to be spending time and money rebuilding and deprogramming these people so that Gaza never poses a threat to us. And there's all sorts of stuff happening in the West Bank, but it's pretty tiny compared to what the Hamas was doing in Palestinian Islamic Jihad from Gaza. But the aerial bombings are down to almost nothing. They do bomb occasionally. And the Hamas rockets being fired out of Gaza they've been, steadily reducing as the Rocketeers are killed and their launching pads are destroyed, and the depots of rockets and missiles and whatever else they have, are being blown up. So the flooding of the tunnels is making them come out and surrender. This is going.
I'm almost enjoying. I'm having a little bit of a morose enjoyment of the idea of these rats being flooded out of the tunnels.
Yeah.
There is poetry in it. But let me come back to the tunnels later, if you allow me.
Yeah, of course.
I do have some things to say, but I also have something to show you. And there's a lot of activity in the chat on Twitter. And I have to tell these guys, one of them was asking if we read these. No, we told you already, the only chat that we respond to, if you're in Twitter, the only chat that we respond to is the chat on our Odyssey channel. In the heading of the tweet where you're seeing this video in Twitter, you have a link to that Odyssey channel. You're more than welcome to come to the chat there. We are not going to answer questions or anything in the Twitter. The only thing I'm going to do for Ron Basilian, who's making up excuses for Elon Musk, they inherited this, they inherited that. Ron, darling, I don't give a flying fuck.
Wait, what? Ron is doing what?
Ron Basilian is telling me that, the problem is that Elon Musk inherited this or that from Twitter. First of all, it's been a while. Second, I don't give a shit.
Well, I mean...
Because the results don't change. It's not a question of intentions. I never judge anything by intentions. I don't care what anybody wants to do. I care what they do.
Well, the way I look at it is I don't care. I don't care about Twitter. I don't care about Elon Musk doing this, that, or the other. I mean, I just don't care. It's if I were on Twitter, it would be in a very short time. I wouldn't be on Twitter anymore. So the only way, and this is why I'm not on YouTube. YouTube was going back and giving me community strikes for videos I put up 5 years ago. So
the day I left, I had gotten a community strike for a 2-year-old video. I said, "Fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore."
No, because there's no. I mean, anybody can brigade you. They can mass flag you, and then they'll automatically take you down without. I mean, it's just the. What I learned was that Twitter, YouTube has a terrible problem of people putting up, I guess we're still on YouTube. So videos of adults doing things to children that should not be done. And so YouTube doesn't have a staff that takes this stuff down. YouTube hires, they contract out.
Farm out.
Contract. And all the people who have to take down and review these videos, they burn out really quickly because these are, I mean, I was tricked into seeing a video that was filmed in Brazil, and it was somebody running into a bedroom with 2 little kids in terror and shooting them to death. And
smart.
The people who have to review all those videos, they burn out in a matter of weeks. And, the companies eventually tell YouTube, you're not paying us enough, and so social media, the psychologist Sam Vaknin says that social media all the people who use social media eventually develop the same pathology as the inventors of that particular platform. And I don't agree that everybody does, but I do agree that a hell of a lot of people do. Social media attracts extremely deficient people. They're deficient on every kind of level, and all they're interested in is inflicting suffering on others. And who needs that? I mean, who needs that? I don't need it. So I'm more than happy to not be on YouTube anymore, not be on Twitter anymore. I was banned from Facebook multiple times. You know, there was a period in 2018 when I was banned from PayPal. I was banned from everybody. They were trying to, like, you know, really do that non-personing thing, and I fought back, and you know, I ended up going back on getting back with all my financial institutions. But
Yep.
Wells Fargo stood up for me, and they were the first to say, no, we're not going to do this. He's one of our long-term customers. So I've been with Wells Fargo for, I don't know, 40 years. And so they stood up for me, and that's when it all started collapsing. But everybody else just said, oh, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, we'll do that, we'll do that.
They do that all the time. And you told me there is no upside to this at the time when you decided to leave the thing. And as far as I know, you have maybe once or twice come out with something that you saw that you thought was important enough. But otherwise, you're not. What we are doing here is about your only interaction, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just not. I mean, there is no upside, because if you say certain things, then you're going to get predators after you. And you know, I had a lifetime of fighting off predators. I'm not going to spend my golden years fighting off predators, and especially now in California, where there's literally, it's the law of the jungle. I'm not going to have people trying to track me down. I'm not going to say something completely innocuous that pisses off this or that forum who pride themselves on tracking people down and sending lunatics after them. It's just not, there's no upside. And you know, I had my share. I had people come out here, and they sure wish they hadn't.
Listen, we've both been swatted.
Yeah.
We've both had to deal with cops, with the FBI, just because some asshole wanted to get at us.
Yeah. Oh, and in my case, I had somebody try to break in, and he broke into the wrong house.
Yeah.
At the time, I'd set up a trap. And
you know, that reminds me of something else. In 1976, the military government in Argentina sent a band of goons to my father's office, where he had his record company. And this was in a building, the Otto Bemberg building, that had a mezzanine floor and then the first floor. And my father's record company was in office 1A, which took the entire first floor. And the assholes went into the mezzanine A and destroyed the fucking place. It was a 78-year-old accountant that had an office there. And nobody knew, except that, you know, it was clear that they just came into the building, went upstairs, first floor, letter A, destroyed the place. And that's how my father's office was spared. And now it kind of happened to you. They went into the, a neighboring house.
Yeah, and
fortunately, the bad guys are never too bright,
no, and I'm a very vengeful person. If you okay, Michael Caine served in the Korean War. He was a British draftee, and I heard there's a recording of him on YouTube reading, I guess, from his memoir, and he said, if you leave me alone, I'm good, but if you mess with me, then it's going to be really bad, because I'm just going to make sure to take as many of you as I can with me. And that's my attitude at this point.
Oh yeah.
I'm not afraid, but I see no point in tempting fate with the craziness. And
Right.
anyway,
You're not afraid, but you don't want to purposely go into trouble. If it comes to you, it comes to you. But
no,
why look for it?
no, and this is all on the way out. The Israeli attack on Hamas, the retaliation, this has extremely wide-reaching repercussions, and that's why you're seeing this frenzied protest by leftists, is because they know, because in the past Israel never dared take that final step, and what they're doing now is they are doing it, and
They have no choice, Thomas.
no, they have no
They
choice.
have no options. There is a paradigm change on October 7 that left them entirely out of options. And when they're done with Hamas, they have to get rid of Fatah and the rest of the PLO asshats, and then they have to go after Hezbollah. And if they need to go after Iran, they will.
Yeah.
Because now they're not fighting to preserve the status quo, they're fighting for their own survival. They got a message on October 7. We want to eradicate you from the face of the earth.
Yeah.
We will kill your babies. We will burn your families. We will do what the Dear Levanger Brigade did and more.
What I've heard.
What do you do? What do you do when you get that message?
Well, what I've heard is that Yahya Sinwar, who heads the Hamas military wing, as opposed to the political wing,
imagine that,
he despises the ones sitting on their butts in Qatar, making their diabetes worse and flying around in private jets.
Yep, they've disappeared,
They've disappeared because
they've gone underground.
The Qataris said, we're not going to protect you anymore. There's no upside for us. So Yahya Sinwar, he's a man of action, despite not. Okay, the Israelis recently lost a major general in combat because he was fighting with his men. He was literally fighting alongside his men. And Yahya Sinwar says, you go out and die while I sit here underground. And so Yahya Sinwar did not inform the guys in Qatar who are now missing in action. He didn't inform them until, everything was underway.
He jumped the gun. That's why Iran and Hezbollah have dropped him.
Exactly. And he also overdid it. And despite the craziness, people are talking about, international pressure on Israel. There's no pressure anyone can bring. And we haven't cut off their resupply of ammunition and munitions, and aerial munitions. I think Biden is been told to go off and just do his own thing, and meanwhile, the people with real responsibility, they're busy supplying the Israelis. And, um, you know, they're going to finish the job, and it's only going to be a few more weeks.
Mm, It may be a little bit longer than that, depending on how things go. The
Well,
Israelis are ready for a 7-month campaign at this point, and if it happens to be 3, so much the better.
well, I mean, it'll continue in the way that the war in Germany continued with the werewolves. You know, the werewolves
Yep.
kept fighting for years, but nobody could argue.
10,000 American soldiers died after Germany's surrender, courtesy of the werewolf.
Yeah, so
But we never fought an insurgency before, you know.
well, nobody could deny that the Nazis were out of power. The werewolves were just lunatics.
Yeah.
The werewolves, a lot of them were killed by Germans who were just sick of everything.
Yep.
But Hamas will be, I mean, they're going to find Sinwar, and my hope is that he tries to surrender and he begs for his life and they get it all on film. That would be really, really excellent. But, you know, they're doing it. They're not going to stop. And nobody has any leverage against Israel at this point. They really don't.
But you see, that's the thing. When you come to the conclusion that you have to fight for your survival, and indeed you are, there are no entreaties that can convince you to drop your weapons and go home and maybe come back on after the Shabbat and sing Kumbaya with the Hamas soldiers. It's not going to fucking happen. When you're fighting for survival, there is no compromise because the other side is not willing to compromise, is aiming at your extermination.
Yeah. And the entire Palestinian position is built on lies. Okay. Occupation, there's no occupation, genocide.
Well,
Um,
they're not talking about the occupation of Gaza. They're talking about the occupation of Tel Aviv.
well, then they can stick it up their butts. I mean,
It's another propaganda issue. When these fuckers talk about occupation, they're not talking about Gaza and the West Bank. They're talking about the entirety of the land. They're talking about Israel. They're talking about Tel Aviv. They're talking about Jerusalem. So fuck them sideways.
well, but they've shown that they can't hold a candle. I mean, you know, we're going to march all the way to Jerusalem. Well, you didn't make it.
Yeah, well, give it a try.
But okay, there's that. The genocide. I looked up the numbers. There's 5 million Palestinians, 5.5 million Palestinians today. And when Israel was formed in 1948, there were 780,000 Palestinians. So gone from 780,000 to 5.5 million. That's an anti-genocide. That's a backward genocide.
Yep, and the ones who remained in Israel, they are Israeli citizens. They fight in the IDF. They're proud of their Israeli citizenship. And by the way, they are targeted by Hamas and all that jazz because they're pigs.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have that on film. On October 7th, the guys on the ground was saying, you know, I'm a Muslim, I'm an Arab. And they're like, no, you're not. You live in Israel. So, you know, I mean,
one of the 3 hostages that were regrettably killed was precisely a Muslim Bedouin Israeli citizen who was kidnapped by Hamas and held in appalling conditions for nearly 2 months. And unfortunately, and this is something I feel like we have to say, if you're ever in a combat situation, however happy you are to see one side, don't run towards them.
No, I mean, this happens when people are holding hostages in American 7-Elevens, hostages have been killed because they run out and the police think they're a gunman trying to escape
Yep.
or shoot or whatever. So this happens in that area.
Frequently.
This happens where in an area where they were killed, Palestinian civilians were prohibited from being there. So,
Yep.
And okay, during the Entebbe raid in 1976, the hostage who was killed stood up because he was so happy, and
Yep.
they were all being yelled at to lie down.
To lie down because they were, trying to aim at the terrorists. But by the way, that is, for those who don't know, that is the rescue of the Jews that were kidnapped by the assholes who now govern the West Bank. Okay?
When the Germans stormed the Lufthansa plane that was Palestinians hijacked in 1977.
Right. But it was Palestinians of the branch of Abu Mazen, who is the president of the Palestinian Authority, not Hamas, which goes to prove they're the same shit. And the Israelis carried out a daring and successful raid in a very hostile country in the worst possible conditions in the middle of the night, and showed us that hostages can be rescued. The guy who led the Israeli soldiers in that mission was the brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. Remember that?
Yes, he was killed. So what I was saying was that when the Germans rescued the hostages from the Lufthansa plane that Palestinians hijacked and took to Mogadishu, the commandos who stormed on board were screaming in German, "Lie down, lie down, lie down, lie down." Mm-hmm. And if you're ever in a hostage situation and something starts happening, you have to hit the deck.
Hit the deck as soon as you can and stay there.
Also, okay, when you're a little kid, your parents teach you to not run across the street. And people may not have stopped to think about it. When you're running, you can't see things clearly. So that's how little kids run out in front of cars.
And maybe a car is trying to avoid you, and they would have avoided you, except that you run straight into its path.
Yeah, so if something is happening, you have to keep your head. And I've seen videos of, business place shootings or just whatever. And a lot of times people just get up and start running. And, you have to figure out what's going on. Recently in Ukraine, some nutter threw 3 hand grenades into a city council meeting. And, miraculously, only one person died. He used offensive hand grenades, which are blast effect rather than fragmentation. If he'd used fragmentation grenades, there wouldn't have been a single survivor because it was a closed room. But, I've noticed also nobody ever charges. This guy really took his time getting out the grenades and everything, but everyone was just kind of staring at him, and they didn't even react until he tossed the grenade right in front of everybody, and they just kind of stared at it. I don't know. You have to be. Of course, who's anticipating someone coming in? And he was a politician, so they knew him. Nobody's anticipating one of their colleagues coming in and start to throw grenades, but still, how leftists always talk about, I feel unsafe. You're making me feel unsafe. You're not safe. No, but none of us are safe. None of us are safe. Right at this moment, a plane flying overhead from, I don't know,
LAX,
a third world country, the engine could fall right into my house. The whole plane could take a nosedive into my house. I could have a heart attack. I could have something wrong with me that I don't know. A car could crash through my door. None of us are safe. So
Yep. At least you're not Hillary Clinton. You know, she could bite her tongue and died of the poison.
well, no, I don't intend on my own body poisoning me, but yeah, I mean the one of the reasons I don't use social media anymore is that no matter what you say, there's people who are going to go after you because they disagree with you, and they may nominally be on your side, but they're so used to being on social media that they go after you with a ferocity that is completely unwarranted by what you're saying. And so in the case of Ukraine, I said from the beginning that Ukraine was going to win the war. I mean, I knew that from the beginning because I saw how the Russians fought in Georgia in 2007, and they were horrible. They were horrible, and there were videos that showed them shooting over their heads with their eyes closed like Somali militiamen, and everyone was shooting full automatic. So that's a whole wasted magazine of bullets. And they didn't have shoes. Some of them didn't have shoes. They were sent into battle with no shoes. And the Georgians reported that the Russians stole all their toilets because Russians don't have toilets. And I learned recently that Marshal Zhukov, the great hero of the Soviet Union, who defeated the Germans single-handedly, he when he left Berlin, he had an entire carload of stolen German toilets. And Russians who oppose the war in Ukraine have been putting toilets at his statues. And you can get arrested doing that. But I knew the Ukrainians would win. And Die Welt, is it Die Welt? Is it Die? Yeah.
Die Welt, the German magazine?
Yeah. They just put out an article today, and it said that the Ukrainians haven't even scratched the surface of all the super high-tech Western weapons we've given them.
Oh, not even close, Thomas.
No.
I was having a lovely discussion in for Campbell, because I run a few things that you and I have discussed before, and just to see if you and I are somewhere within the ballgame. We are giving them trash. The Patriot missiles that the Ukrainians are using is technology from the first Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
The new ones are exponentially better targeting, more powerful, longer range. They are using what we throw away. The tanks the Abrams that we give them may look like a regular Abrams, but these were decommissioned by the Marine Corps in the 90s. All of it is 1990s technology that we have no longer use for. We're giving them surplus.
Yeah.
Shit we don't need. Obsolete. They are kicking Russian ass, and when I say kicking Russian ass, I'm not exaggerating.
No.
The most accurate estimates, I believe, so far are from British intelligence, and they speak of about 120,000 casualties altogether, 70,000 dead, 120,000 altogether, including the wounded, for the Ukrainians, and 340,000 for the Russians, including 180,000 dead. The Russians are losing 3-1 in the casualty game, in the attrition game with the Ukrainians. It is insane. And they're doing this with ingenuity. Remember at the beginning of the war when they used to drop grenades? from toy store drones. I remember another one that did a mobile artillery unit with an electric bicycle, not a motorcycle, an electric bicycle, and a rocket launcher. And he would go around on the freaking bicycle, silent, no engines, and create havoc. And the Russians thought they were dealing with a full battalion.
Well, the Ukrainians have entire warehouses full of World War I machine guns. It's called the Russian Maxim, model 1910. And so what the Ukrainians did was they converted these into semi-automatic long-range sniper rifles, and they put a shoulder rest on these. They also did this. They did this with the tank machine guns. The Russian tank commander has an anti-aircraft machine gun, so he can stick out of the hatch and shoot down jets. And what they did was they took those and they converted them to semi-automatic, massively long-range sniper rifles. And a Ukrainian sniper just got the world record for the longest kill. It was 3 kilometers or something. I mean, it was something outrageous. And they take those Russian Maxims from 1910 and they cram 3 or 4 of them together, and then they can shoot down drones, those Ukrainian Iranian drones, because it's putting out a massive volume of fire. And these are weapons that they still shoot, and they're not using up modern day ammunition, so why not use them? And
why not use them and get rid of these things? Look at this one here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is the kind of thing that people tend to ignore. Russia sent a whole new division to Kherson Oblast to try and dislodge the bridgehead that the Ukrainians managed to get a hold on the left bank of the Dnieper.
Freeze that picture. Go back to that picture.
Yes. I can even do better, I think. Let me see if I can enlarge it for you. Not much.
Yeah. Do these look like paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne or the 101st?
Oh God! I just spent a few days with paratroopers of the 101st, and I assure you, these look like a cartoon version.
Yeah.
One of our guys can take on several platoons of these idiots.
Well, what the hell? Okay, there's this is the weirdest photo. They're all they do that foot stamping thing, and I don't know. It's just they're terrible. They look like cannon fodder, and
they are.
They are.
Oh, I'm sorry. Most of them were.
Yeah.
Because the casualties that this new division sustained is like half of them were already gone. They couldn't advance a freaking inch. They were supposed, the article, they were supposed to save the Russian campaign on the left bank of the Dnieper. Instead, they're dead.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian Marines of the 35th Brigade just withstood every attack from these guys. Out of the 2,000-person division, let me see. The entire division became a casualty.
Yeah.
Between the killed, wounded, and desertions.
Well, see.
So much for that.
The reason that the bridgehead is held for so long is because the Russian Air Force refuses to communicate with the ground troops. So when they get an order to drop a bomb, they just drop it wherever the hell they want to, which, like as not, lands on Russian troops. And it's the same with the artillery. Now, you remember the world wrote Ukraine off after North Korea began supplying artillery rounds.
Right. Because artillery from North Korea was going to end the war.
Yeah, and
for the North Koreans
said at the time they're going to find out that it's crap and it's unusable, and that's exactly what happened. That a conservative estimate is about 20% of the rounds are can even be fired, and okay, they've opened okay the way the Russian and North Korean artillery works is that the round goes in the cannon and you put powder bags behind it, and so the powder bags, the propellant in the powder bags, no two bags have the same composition of powder in them, so you can't use any artillery firing tables because you don't know how far the round is going to go. And some of these powder bags are so supercharged that they're blowing up the Russian the self-propelled artillery pieces. These are rounds that the North Koreans never intended to use because they're too dangerous. So North Korea is unloading its garbage on Russia, and
well, same as we are, except that we have better quality garbage.
Sure, and okay, and on top of it all, the Ukrainians blew up the only two ways for Chinese and North Korean weapons to get to Russia, the tunnel and then the overground railroad.
Yes, because that's another thing. Everybody talks about the failure to gain territory. And, you know, I have to say it's kind of disappointing. I was expecting a little bit of territory gain, but we, when I say we, I mean the West, nickel and dime Ukraine, delayed, they haven't received the Abrams yet. They're receiving them now. There's a new tank division that is being formed with the Abrams. We didn't give them planes. They might get them in time for the spring, but who knows? Even though we have 1,800 F-16s we don't need in Europe alone. In fact, the F-16s they're about to get first were decommissioned by the Dutch because they're getting the F-35s, and they didn't know what the fuck to do with this. And there were a bunch that were decommissioned by the Swiss, and they were trying to get them through Italy because the Swiss cannot do it directly. But all of this, we haven't given it to them. And at the same time, it allowed the Russians time to build defenses, to build trenches, to mine fields, making it extremely difficult. And of course, when the counteroffensive started, they had nothing to clear the minefields with. They had to improvise with farm equipment.
The Pentagon, according to Die Welt, and according to an article that the head of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Zaluzhny? No, that's the...
No, that's not the head.
It's the intelligence guy. Well, anyway, the head of the Ukrainian Armed Forces wrote a long piece for Forbes, and Die Welt recently published a piece on everything that's happening. Our brilliant Pentagon, which is run by a guy who sees white people under every bed and coming out of the cupboards, he presented the Ukrainians with a plan for the offensive that he proudly said was artificially intelligence generated. And what this did was
that's great.
Well, it called on the Ukrainians to use NATO tactics without mine clearing vehicles and without an air force. So that means that the counteroffensive was dead in the water. It was dead on arrival, because and you would think that a former military officer would understand that you can't fight NATO tactics without NATO weaponry, but he didn't.
No.
So the Ukrainian had opposed all of this. He was overruled because basically they held the threat of, well, no more. It was both Jens Stoltenberg of the head of NATO
Yep.
and our State Department geniuses. They said, if you don't do this, then we can't guarantee more ammunition. So
Right, because you have to use it the way we tell you to.
right. So they had
That lasted 3 weeks, though.
exactly, and now basically everybody is just kind of glumly admitting that the Ukrainians need. And we're back to what Churchill said: Americans always do the right thing after they've tried everything else. And
Yep.
We
but the Ukrainians didn't sit on their asses.
No, exactly.
They changed tactics. They caused enormous casualties to the Russians. The amount of casualties in Avdiivka now rival those of Bakhmut. It's another meat grinder.
Right.
And what's happening to the new troops in Kherson is beyond ridiculous. But they got 20 missiles with enough range. They used the 20 most effectively. They destroyed just about every weapons and fuel depot that the Russians had in Crimea.
Yeah.
They destroyed distilleries on the other side on the Russian side of the Kerch bridge. They bombed the living shit out of even oh God, not 3 weeks ago, they blew out the fuel depots in Luhansk.
Mm-hmm.
And they have essentially undermined whatever passes for logistics in the Russian army and causing the Russians in the front line to have no ammunition, no fuel, no food, no hope.
Yeah. No,
by the way, we've been going for an hour, and I itch to go into the adult swim. So this is bye-bye, YouTube. It's been a pleasure to a degree. Click on the link under the video to come over here. Bye.